Some mental notes to jot down for Damsel of Decay. You got the gist. You get better at positioning, or rather, the positioning of everyone as they run down to make sure that they aren't standing in the pathway of the ramp and the doorway, spawning tentacles there. Because that's just bad. That's bad. It's a good way to get your ooze kiter killed, or Boken people killed. Let's see what else. Oh yeah, I had timed out. Where did I put that? I've got like 20 notebooks now. Signed up for too many classes. Well, somewhere around here, I wrote down timestamps of when Boken uses spawned, and from what I could tell, is the oozes were on a 1 minute and 15 second timer, plus or minus a few, maybe a tick. And the Bokens seem to be, those are a little more difficult to pinpoint or pin down their timer on respawn. It seemed to be around 30 seconds. But, let's see, the fastest I saw was 20 second, and the longest was about 45 seconds. So, not 100% certain. Maybe it changes throughout the event. Um, and of course, the very first spawns for both the ooze and the Boken are not the same as every other following preceding um, Boken spawn and ooze spawn for the timer. Like the first ooze spawned, it was something like 40 seconds maybe. It was different than the minute and 15 seconds. And the same for the Boken. It was longer than 30 seconds until the first one spawned, which I'm assuming the devs intentionally did this so that so that we can't make, repeating timers in Gyna and make it nice and easy. Because the Boken and the oozes don't have a text phrase when they spawn, so you can't tie it into a timer that way. Um, and I can't tie it into a timer with the event triggered text phrase. I could try, but I don't know. I have to test some stuff out. What else? Obviously, we gotta increase our DPS. Um, One thing that would help actually would be to have everyone run down. Well, maybe not everyone. Casters, or rather the priests, can maybe stay up top if that's more ideal. But I still think the priest should run down to add DPS. Um, I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure that they can't nuke through the floor. So yeah, at about 57%, I would say, um, to have most everyone run down. Let dots ticker down from 57 to 55 for the first warp down. And that's so everyone's down there ready to go. And I know ROI sets up in the hallway, the ramp, and they don't run into their actual room, so they don't spawn roots. But just having people close to the bottom or in the bottom room would hasten our DPS burn as soon as she warps down. I don't think, I'm not sure if there's the timer. It's a minute and 55 seconds, I think, as her warp timer between when she goes up and down. Um, but regardless, you don't want to run up beforehand. You just want to stick on her in DPS until she warps, basically. I mean, you could run up with 6 seconds to go, but I don't know if you're really increasing damage on her at that point. I know some people think that curing the enfeeblement the snare slow, spell slow is not worthwhile. It's a 2 tick, I think, duration debuff. But druids, when I box my druids have a nice group corruption cure. Takes it out in one cast for the whole group, and it works wonders. And I don't see why druids wouldn't cast that. And I'm not sure if clerics, what their situation is. I would assume shamans have group cure. Um, but yeah, pretty much you can, as a druid, cure yourself, cure your group, and not be slowed for 12 seconds. You'd only be slowed for maybe 6 seconds. The roots, I've heard different rumors. Rote says if you move around, that lessens the root spawns, the amount of. Um, said they tested it, seemed to work. So, I mean, we could try and do that, but I've never really been a big fan of the merry-go-round type position style of having an entire raid move like that. It's iffy, especially in an open raid team. I mean, we could definitely do it if we focused enough and practice, but at this point, it's just basically working on our DPS output with what we have. Definitely got to increase that before anything else. And the other big aspect of this raid to worry about is the ad control. We've gotten a lot better with it. Um, I was talking to Gima Mom about how many he has assigned, what classes, who's assigned to what. Um, and I would put at least one tank in different areas, different locations. You have one or two tanks down in the bottom to pick up all the bokens where they're supposed to spawn. I would put one in the hallway, kind of, or at the top of the hallway, to kind of pick off any that get by the bottom people and run up the ramp. And then I would have a tank up top to pick up any that happen to get by bottom room in the ramp person. Or Boken that warp, because they do that, apparently. So I would put 4 tanks, 2 on the bottom, 1 in the ramp, the top, and then 1 on the top area. And then obviously a tank for the Mr. Ooze. Maybe a backup. I mean, we have so many tanks, we can spare them, I think. Um, I'm not I'm not sure how much DPS they can throw out. I mean, Shadow Knights you could probably throw out Harm Touch, obviously. Try and work a rotation, maybe. Try and work in a rotation for Tivs, Tybals. Um, Anything that would increase the DPS, basically. I think there was something else I wanted to. I can't remember. Oh yeah, with the potions, I talked about this the other night. With the potion clickies, if you use too powerful of a potion that has that cures too many counters, it can cure through 2 ranks or 2 different debuffs. It can go from physicality and cure all the way to the next one. It could cure physicality, fate, and then you're ending up with limbs. So don't use too powerful a potion because you can end up curing limbs and getting the physicality or some goofy stuff. I think everyone should be able to cure themselves of that disease too, by the way. I don't think we really need to worry about asking for or curing people. Just focus on curing the 1 dot and enfeeblement, really, and DPSing. And for priests, I don't know. I mean, it might be safe. It might be more beneficial just to stay up top, maybe on the little spiral ramp or on one of the arches or a lamp post. I don't know what you guys do. Stand wherever works best, but I think for this raid, it would be more beneficial for you guys to run down on the first warp down, get some nukes, and have a necro. Well, I'm not sure if she's flagged undead. I think she is. Either way, have a necro, turn her undead if she isn't flagged undead. On the warp down, get your nukes off. Just, everyone needs to be DPSing at that point. I'm reading up here. The Boken Blast, yeah. Usually what kills me on Zac is it's either a combination of the dot plus a Boken Blast plus auras piling up. Or, um, yeah, pretty much that. Her melee damage doesn't really amount to much. I mean, it doesn't take too many healers to keep the warrior up if it was just based on her melee damage output. I think most weeks I've got two clerics healing me, and that's kind of it. And the two clerics in my group that are focused healing. And looking over parses, it's basically just them. I've got other druids, helping heal, but they're focused on other stuff too. So that basically tells me that if two clerics can keep me up for pretty much that fight, then healing's not a huge necessity. Of course, obviously, if I'm dying with defensive still on, that's another story, but yeah. And the other thing, 35% is when the debuffs kick in. Just really, there's you gotta be paying attention to what kind of debuff you get and to cure yourself. I mean, obviously, DPS get rid of limbs, tanks get rid of physicality, healers get rid of faith. It's pretty straightforward. And for tanks, whoever's tanking an Ashty, um, pop Fortitude at 36%. Or you could pop it at 37, but with how slow our DPS is, Fortitude might fade by the time she gets to 35. So it's kind of a play it by ear, how much DPS we have. Um, that's about it that I can think of off the top of my head.